Hello and good afternoon, good evening to everyone here on tonight. Listen, let me welcome all of us in. This is our third Thursday talks, and we're grateful to God to be here on tonight. We have a very exciting topic that we're going to be talking about, and then some well-versed and knowledgeable guests that's with us on tonight, and we're very excited about it. We do apologize. Last month we could not get on, but listen, we are here tonight. That is what is important. So, listen, if you are viewing us online, we encourage you to, if you're on Facebook, to share. You can take and you can share this post. Let somebody know that we're on the air. And then if you are at home and you're watching via YouTube, or perhaps you're on your smart device looking at us via Twitter, let somebody know. Take a little moment, let somebody know that we're on the air. And then for our friends and family who are viewing on Facebook, we will be able to a little bit later on get some of your questions and some of your input. And then for those that took and join us via the webinar, we're grateful for you as well. You can, in the chat section, you can send us your questions and your dialogues. Tonight, we're going to talk from this topic. It is no idle minds, no idle minds. Teens engage. One of our members came to me and she brought this to my attention, and how the good church people are. They're like, hey, Pastor, they say that the idle mind is the devil's workshop. And some of these kids, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that they get involved and active, involved in nefarious activities because of just idleness. Because of idleness, there are several articles that are out there that help to support her claim and others that this has shown to be one of the factors or one contributor why we see many of our young people, and I won't say me, I may be over exaggerating, but some of our young people involved, whether it be criminal activity, crime, whatever the case may be, but activities that are not positive. And so tonight, we want to dialogue. We're going to have a conversation, three professionals sitting around the table, though virtually. And, we're going to talk tonight about it. And we're grateful to have with us here on tonight Mr. Rohan Thompson. Mr. Rohan Thompson. He is the program director for FIU After School All Stars. Brother Thompson, if you would unmute yourself, tell us good evening here on tonight, and just brief a little something about your organization.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for Pastor Barbara for inviting me to this special occasion. I don't take the opportunity for granted. Hopefully, I can impart something or leave the audience with something that they can take back with them into their homes and their families for the betterment of the group. So, as Pastor Barbara said, my name is Rohan Thompson. I am one of two program directors within FIU After School All Stars. I've been with the organization for going on 13 years now, and what it is that we do is through a partnership with the Miami-Dade County Public School System, we enter into middle schools and high schools and offer support in the after school hours, be it academic support, enrichment, physical fitness, that kind of thing, to fill the gap that would otherwise be there for our students in the community, given that some of them are in underserved neighborhoods or they lack opportunities and that kind of a thing. So we strive to meet these kids where they are, to give them the opportunities that they would otherwise may not have had to excel in education and further on in life.
Awesome, awesome. Listen, we're grateful that you took time out of your busy schedule to be one of our panelists and to offer your voice to this conversation that we're having here on tonight. Listen, we are also grateful and pleased that this sister, she took time out of her schedule. She is the president and the CEO of Girl Power Rocks Incorporated. Miss, and I hope I'm saying it right, Thema Campbell. Did I get that right? First name right?
Perfect.
Perfect. Oh, I won a prize tonight. So Miss Campbell, welcome tonight. Won't you just bring us some greetings and then tell us a little something about your organization, and then we want to dive right into our conversation on tonight.
Okay, so I'll be very brief. We're on the website is girlpowerrocks.org if you want to know more about the agency, in case I don't get around to a long introduction. So first of all, Pastor Barbara, thank you so very much for inviting me here. I have had a busy day, and this is an extra long day because I'm still working, but that's all right. That's what it's all about. I am the president and CEO of Girl Power. And Girl Power came about because of what you just said, kids needing a safe place. It's
Hmm.
for girls, unfortunately, only. Unfortunately and fortunately, it is for girls only. But we do provide safe spaces for girls in about 5 public schools in Miami-Dade County. Georgia Jones, Ayers, uh, Brownsville Middle School. We also are down south at Robert Morgan Educational Center. We are at Richmond Heights Middle School. And we have a program at the Dorothy Bendross Mendengal Center in Liberty City. And so these are the 5 schools that we're in. And so what we are is we provide programs and services for girls with a trauma-informed focused. Because if you live in a community where there's a lot of violence, more than likely you've experienced some sort of trauma. And so that's how the girls come to us. In addition to the trauma, a lot of them need academic support. They just need safe spaces, and they need people who believe in them, people who love them, and people who can help bring out the best in them and help bring out their talents that they all have. But a lot of times it's overshadowed by the negative. So we try to accentuate the positive and try to help alleviate the negative things that we find within these girls. And that's sort of who we are. Our office is in Overtown. We do have programs. Well, we had it this summer at Booker T. Washington for girls in the Overtown community. So we serve girls all over Miami-Dade County, providing them with the safe spaces and programs and services that they need to be the best women that they can grow up to be.
Awesome, awesome. Listen, I want to tell you guys, thank you again, from the onset again, because I realize that everyone's schedule is very, very precious and packed. And then, we're all still maneuvering and learning how to maneuver in this new norm, in this pandemic time that we are presently living through and living in. Let me get us going by just asking simply the question. And so, Ms. Campbell, since I came to you last with the introductions, I'll come to you first here. Ask you to put your word in on this piece. Do you find with this topic that we have, I mean, because someone may say, no, that's some type of false topic. That's something that you guys just created. It Our children are not idle, wherein our topic is saying that they are idle, and idleness can lead to unproductive. I'll start there in case, being PG for some, but then just being cut through the chase, that can lead to kids being pulled into criminal activity and those unfavorable behaviors.
So first of all, let's set the record straight. Most of our kids are doing positive things.
Good, good.
The problem is the kids that are doing the bad things get most of the attention.
Oh, I like that.
Most of our kids are doing great things. They are good kids. They're wonderful kids. They're sweet. They're kind. They're polite. Um, so it's the bad ones that give the whole barrel a bad name.
Hmm.
That's number one. Number two is the minds are not idle. The minds are idle. The minds are working, but it's just not, some of them is just not doing the right things.
Okay.
So if you don't have something positive for them to do, if they haven't found their niche, if they don't know what to do, then they are going to do something, whether it's on social media, doing and saying the wrong things, whether it's being promiscuous in the streets, whether it's drugs and alcohol. But kids will find something to do because they're not going to sit around and just do nothing.
Hmm.
So we as the adults, and I'll say this, it's the adults, it's not the kids.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
is not the kids, it's the adults. Now, I can say that I have 3 kids of my own, and I know that I probably didn't put in all the time that I should have put in with my kids, but it is not the kids, it's the adults. And I want to go on the record saying that. So it's our responsibility. Our kids are our responsibility. And if other people can keep their kids on the right track, we can do the same thing. We just have to find out what it is we need to be doing as a community. So to me, it's not the kids. And most of the kids are good kids.
Okay.
Most of the kids are doing the right thing. But the ones that are doing the bad things are the ones that get highlighted on the news, in the newspaper, stories written about them. We don't write good stories. We don't write stories about the kids that are doing good things. We don't highlight those kids because there's so many of them. But the few kids that are doing the bad things, they're the kids that get the most attention.
Okay, great, great, great. There's some things that you said that I want to pick up on that
Okay.
conversation. But Ms. Thompson, can you share with us? I mean, your opinion, your take, on the whole idea, with this topic, idle minds and those that are, that are idle. And we heard Ms. Campbell say, and I want to come back around to some of the things that she brought out and talk about that a little bit more. But give us your take, Mr. Thompson.
Well, we work in we serve a similar demographic and populations, and this a lot of the things that she mentioned resonates with me because left to his or her own devices, a kid will do whatever is there for them to do. However, with the right direction, they will do the right things almost all the time. I won't say every time, but almost all the time. So everything that she said, I could just echo it. All I would add to it is to say that as parents, we need to take a step back and look at how it is we're parenting our kids and understand that the role of parenting is not only a serious one, but it's not a, sometimes it seems like it's meant to be a shared responsibility. Let me just drop them off at the school and then the school will grow them for me. And then I'll just bring them home and feed them and that's it. It has to be more than that. It has to be more involvement. It has to be more engagement with the students. Find out how he or she is doing. Find out all the issues that they may be having and all the goals and dreams and aspirations that they have. That way you can help to support them as best you can. Because ultimately, like Miss Campbell said, or Mrs. Campbell, please forgive me, whichever it is, um, they're our responsibility. Kids don't grow themselves. So that's my take on it.
Okay. So Ms. Campbell, you said, one thing that kind of that one of the things that resonated. You start talking about the attention that is given to the small group that's doing the negative versus those that are doing the positive, and that speaks to the narrative that is written about our kids of color. Um, um, what is it that we can do to help to change the narrative or the narratives that are being displayed, because channel 7, channel 4, 10, and whoever else, what sells viewers and sells papers and publications and drive people to the website, it seems this insatiable appetite for negativity. What, if at all, anything can be done to begin to put the light and shine the light? Organizations like yours, organizations like Ms. Thompson's, and highlight these children, the majority of them that are doing good things.
It's sometimes it's very hard to get the news media to write good stories. Like when you call Channel 7 and say, "Hey, I have a great mentoring program. These kids are doing great. Can you write a story?" Oh, they'll say, "Oh, we got to find an angle. We got to do this, and we can't really, and they'll give you all kind of excuses about why they can't write a story. The same thing with the Herald and the rest of them. They got to have some sort of special angle. Is it Martin Luther King Jr.'s holiday? Is it Black History Month? Maybe. So, Pastor Barber, I think that we have to do this ourselves. We have to catch good kids doing something good and pat them on the back and say good job or keep it up. Just catch kids doing things that are good, that are pleasing, that makes parents happy, that make us happy as adults and proud, and keep doing that and let that become the norm. Let it become the norm for us to catch our kids doing something good, because if you watch them long enough, they're going to do something good. And when they are doing something bad, Pastor, that's when we gotta love them even more, That's when we got to embrace them even more, and don't throw them aside or cast them aside like they're outcasts, because that's what happened when the kids do bad things. A lot of times we cast them aside like there is no forgiveness, and we got to let them know that, hey, you still my child, you still my son, I still love you, you still have an opportunity to do great things. And so I believe in my heart that we have to catch the kids when they're doing something good, and we have to pat them on the back and encourage them more. And we can highlight those kids ourselves. We can highlight them in our churches and in our programs. And even, and I'm not going to take a lot more time, but something great for one kid is not the same as something great for another kid. If you have a kid that's been getting in trouble all his life, and he go to school every day for 1 week, and he's never done that, well, that's something great for that kid. If he's never gone to school for 1 week every day, and then there's 1 week where he goes to school for a week, that's something great for that kid. Where another kid who goes to school every day, get perfect attendance on the honor roll, we have to measure him by another yardstick. So all of our kids are not the same. We have to catch them when they're doing something good. We have to highlight that, and we have to do it in our communities, and we have to acclimate our communities to that. But these kids are good, and they're doing good things,
Okay.
but we got to highlight their goodness.
Okay. Um, so Mr. Thompson, in this narrative of either shifting the narrative or even just looking at the narrative that we do have before us, that would try and make it appear that it's all of our children, that it's all of our neighborhoods. Some parents find themselves in a predicament where they have to work longer hours, they have to do two jobs or two shifts in order to pay the bills. Some, not all, and then their family dynamic is not one where the husband can be home with the child, or grandmom can be there, or sister can be there, and sometimes the child may find himself after school home alone with no place to go. What alternatives are out there for parents who may find themselves, some parent who may be watching tonight or may catch this later on, if they don't know what are some of the alternatives that they have other than just leaving their child at home. And it's not bad that they have to work two jobs. I mean, it's just that that's their dynamic. But the child being home puts them in a place, in a position where idleness, and they're left up to their own minds or to their own selves, and anything can happen. What do you have to offer for a parent, whether it be your program, or what word would you share with a parent?
So let me start by saying, great question. And the first thing I would say to that question is awareness. And that's incumbent on folks like ourselves who are in positions to create change. So let these parents know that we are out there, we exist, we're doing the work. So come on in, bring your kids in so we can help you to help them to get to where they need to be. Right? So we definitely need to work on how we communicate. And it ties back into what Ms. Campbell was just talking about as far as shifting the narrative. We have to be the authors and the voices of our own story. Otherwise, it gets conflated, or other things get added to it that aren't supposed to be there, and it dilutes the conversation or skews it in a particular direction. So we have to create the a level of awareness within the community to let them know that, hey, these things are happening. They're here to support you. So let's bring your kids in so we can help you to get them to where they need to be. The other part of it is that we also have to articulate the value in these types of programs and such. Because if the value proposition is not there for the parents, they're not gonna become active members in our endeavors. So we have to articulate a great value proposition to let them know that, hey, your child is here. This is the benefit that they will receive from being here, and you can have your peace of mind knowing that you have to work long hours and so on and so forth to provide for the financial needs of the child.
So what then would be what if I feel that, hey, listen, I'm in that boat and my child is at home. And so what would be an incentive for me as a parent, to get my child plug into, Girls Rock? What would be my incentive to get my child, into the FIU All Stars? What would motivate me to move from having my child home alone, um, with all these other alternatives and possibilities that could happen? It doesn't mean I'm a bad parent. I'm a good parent, but hey, it is what it is. I'm working these two jobs, and I got to make these ends meet. I got to pay these bills. Yeah, I would in the perfect scenario, I wouldn't want my child to be home, but I mean, that's what I have, and so that's what I got. That's what I'm going with. So you know, um, you know, what Miss Campbell would would motivate me to get my daughter. And by the way, I'm a father of three girls.
Oh,
Two of them are
wow.
grown, and they still girls, nevertheless, in daddy's pocket. But so this example.
That'll never end.
Somebody said, somebody told me get them married, and then someone else, when they heard you say get them married, they said no, they'll be married. They're gonna still come around and say, Daddy,
They're gonna
listen,
still
don't
come.
don't tell my husband, but we need you to do A, B, and C. But if my daughters were in that age bracket, what would motivate me if I was in that position? I mean, what would motivate me to move from just leaving them home alone to having them get into a program like yours?
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you, Pastor. We don't have the answer.
Okay.
When I was growing up, we had the village, but I grew up in the country.
Okay.
And we went to after every day we got off the school bus at my grandmama's house. And we stayed there until my mother, daddy came home. Sometimes we didn't even go home because we loved to be at grandmama's house. But we don't have that village anymore. My aunt lived down the road. My uncle lived down the road. Miss Mabel across the street. These people looked out for us, and that was our village. Now, unfortunately, we don't have those luxuries anymore. You can't talk to people kids. You can't put your hand on people kids. You can't say nothing to people's kids now. So we got to recreate the village. Now, there's ways that you can start. One of the things that we do at Girl Power, first of all, it's hard to get parents in the door. It's hard to get parents in the door. They sign their kids up. We may not see them again until it's time for them to re-sign them up again next year. But we do a lot of outreach. We do a lot of incentivizing our parents. One of the things we do is we give parents care packages. Whenever you come to a parent support group meeting, you're going to leave with a care package. You're going to leave with some detergent, with some toilet paper, with some paper towels, with some dishwashing liquid. You're going to leave with a basket of stuff that's going to support you and your family. Now, the trick is to getting the parents in the door and to getting the parents to sign their kids up. This is hard work. And we don't have an answer, because if we did, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Right.
We lost the village. We don't have the village anymore. So we, as people of color, we're going to have to sit down and have a hard conversation with each other about what that looks like. And I was telling somebody this the other day. The only time that I've seen it work was at the Harlem's Children's Zone in New York, what Jeffrey Canada did. Jeffrey Canada started on one block. He went to every house on that block until he got every parent, every household on that block to buy into this new neighborhood that they wanted to create. And now we call them promised neighborhoods, because it's what a promised neighborhood should look like. That's the only time that I've seen it work. But Pastor, it took a lot of work, a lot of sacrifices, and a lot of money. It's going to take money for us to solve this problem. It's not going to be done any other way that I know of. I'm in my 60s, and I've been at this table for a long time. And I've been at this table over 30 years. And for over 30 years, we've been talking about this problem. So it's not a problem that we can solve with dialogues like this. This is going to take everybody leaving their egos at the door, going into a room, and we can solve this problem. But it's going to take some sacrifices. Some generation is going to have to make the sacrifice to solve this problem, because it's not going to go away. And right now, we don't have the answers. And I don't want us to kid ourselves into believing that it's gonna be easy for us to solve this problem. If we could solve it easily, it would have been solved already. We've been having this conversation for a very, very long time, and our kids just keep drifting further and further and further apart. They're in the school to prison pipelines. They doing time in prison. They being molested. They're being sex trafficked, and all of these things because we, as a community of color, we have not gotten serious about this problem, and it's not going to go away, and we don't know. I mean, we all have our our ideals about what we do, and we have our missions that we carry out, and we do affect change, we do save lives, and we do help people, but the bigger picture is, I mean, this is a hard problem for us to solve, and we're gonna have to one day grab this bull by the horn and wrestle with it real seriously, because if not, this is not going to go away.
Okay, so Mr. Thompson, Mr. Thompson, the same thing to you, so hey, FIU All Stars. Um, and then even I know you can't speak for other programs, but for your program, and if you could add some level of generalities to it as to what would incentivize me or motivate me as a parent to get my kids to come to a program like yours.
So I believe part of it has to be a conversation with self, right?
Mhm.
And thinking about what it is that you want for your child. And once you've determined that, then you are in a better place um, to get the resources that are available to you, because not every program is the same. For example, Miss Campbell's program catered to girls. So if you have a son, that wouldn't be the program for you, but maybe another program is there for you. So it's about identifying, you as a parent, identifying what it is that you want for your child. And then, as I mentioned before, creating that awareness, telling our story, all programs like ours, going out there and letting people know what it is that we do. So then once you've isolated what you want for your child and you have the knowledge base of what it is that's out there, then you can blend the two of those things together. Now, in the absence of you look at taking that critical step, the best you can do is then figure out what, well, let me rephrase that. The best you can do is drop your kid off at some location and hope that they'll get whatever is being offered to them and they'll excel and move on to bigger and better things. But I am one person who don't generally like to live in hope. I rather live by action, and it has to start in the home with individuals taking a critical look at what it is that they want to do for their child. Sorry, what it is that they want their child to be, and then building from there. And the supports are there. The support systems are there. People like us are here having conversations. So the supports are there. It's just a matter of them taking gra- taking that proverbial bull by the horn and saying, you know what, I have a role to play in this. So let me do my part, and then they'll help me along the way.
Okay. So, what are three things? Three things. So, if again we go back to the girls, um, three things from your program that if I was a parent that, and maybe some of the people that are viewing, tonight, they know someone, and that may know someone that they find
Mhm.
themselves in a situation that tonight's conversation may motivate them to say, hey, listen, I need to get my child plugged to your program. What are three things that are offered in your program, Girls Rock, um, that are priorities, or mantras, something that the girls, carry on as a mantra, or some people have a certain
Mhm.
chant that they do or what have you that speaks some form of life and into that individual. Would you just share some of that for us, Ms. Campbell?
Okay, sure. Thank you. So three things that So our tagline is improving our world one girl at a time.
Mm.
Improving our world one girl at a time. What does that mean? Every girl is different, but every girl needs to be safe. Every girl needs to be safe. Is your daughter safe after school? Is your daughter safe at home? Uh, is she safe? So if you want to keep your daughter safe, and you know that you're not home to make sure she's safe, you want to take her someplace where she is safe, whether that's at Girl Power, whether that's at All Stars, whether that's at the church, but you want to make sure that your daughter is safe. That's number one. Number two, is your so that's number one. Number two is when the girls come to Girl Power, a lot of them do have issues. They have some sort of triggers. So we have to make sure that we're trained to work with girls who have triggers. Because if girls have triggers, if kids have triggers, we need to know what they are. And there's some special training that teach you how to work with kids when they've been through some form of trauma. And a lot of parents don't understand what trauma is. Trauma is not someone beating you up or, fighting. Trauma is the way you speak to your children. Are you calling them out of their names? That's trauma. If they see their friends being shot and killed in the streets, they didn't get shot, they didn't do the shooting, but there is some trauma that they are experiencing behind what they've witnessed. Is your husband beating you up and your kids are witnessing that? These are all forms of trauma that cause kids to act out. Young men see their moms getting beat up. Well, hey, that's what I'm supposed to do. So where's all this trauma coming from? Most of it is starting in the homes. It's starting with it's starting in their communities and it's in their school. So making sure that you have staff who's trained to talk to parents and people who can have those hard conversations with parents, because sometimes it's very hard to tell a mother, hey, if you don't do something for your daughter right now, you're going to lose her to the streets. And sometimes you have to that's a conversation that you have to have with parents, but you have to know people and people have to know you and people have to know that you care. So there's all kinds of things that you can do to get parents to buy into what you're offering, but sometimes parents have trauma themselves. If I've been traumatized and I don't know I've been traumatized, then this is normal. So the trauma is normal, violence is normal, all of this is normal. So there's the research is out there that talks about the generational trauma that families have gone through, and some of it go all the way back to slavery, if you want to hear the truth. But the trauma is there. It's never been dealt with. It's never been cured. And you really can't cure it, but you learn how to deal with it. You learn how to cope with it, and you find out what your own triggers are and what you need to do to help you and your child. But it's going to take some work on the parents. But the bigger part of this, Pastor, is the community. The community has to take responsibility because a lot of parents don't know. A lot of parents just don't know. They don't know what to do. They don't know what help looks like. They don't even know what love looks like. They don't know what, a nonviolent home looks like. They just haven't seen it. They haven't witnessed it. So it's the community. We are our brothers and sisters keepers. And we have to stop judging and start loving more and start being more inclusive and we just got to love each other more. But the problem is we can't get past ourselves and the blaming and the not seeing people as victims when they are. These kids are victims. These kids are victims too. And so we got to start seeing them as that. And they need our help and their parents need our help. So programs can help kids, but families, the whole family need help. We offer therapy to the whole family. Are they going to take it? Heck no. They hardly don't want their kids to take it because they ain't crazy. Ain't nothing wrong with me. But the parents, the families, they need help. We all need it, but the loving, that village that we used to have. And Pastor, you know what I'm talking about. You remember the lady across the road. You remember the man down the street. You
Absolutely.
remember you remember the pastor. I grew up in the country, so we knew what we could not do because we knew that everybody had our best interests at heart.
Absolutely.
And so
I want to talk a little bit more about that village piece, but can Mr. Thompson, three things or mantra as far as the FIU All Stars, and then I'll circle back around to that whole village concept. That has it's not the first time it has come up, but it's come up a little bit earlier in our time here tonight,
Mhm,
and we'll talk about that because the dynamics of village, what it was, what it is, and what it can be. We
mhm.
can talk about that. But three things that about the FIU All Stars. If I was thinking about getting my kids to come over to FIU All Stars, that you all have as a mantra that you try to instill in the young people that when you have them in your care and under your tutelage.
Uh, three simple ones. One of them, Miss Campbell touched on safety, obvious, right?
Hmm.
I don't need to dwell too much on that because at the end of the day, we all want our families to be safe. The other one is exposure. And by exposure, I mean a lot of our kids, they don't get what other kids in other neighborhoods get. So we try to be that vehicle for them to get those things, to see that there are other options out there, that they don't have to go the same path that person X or person Y did because they didn't have any options. So we give them these opportunities to be exposed to different things. And by doing so, it can create that motivation within them to want to do better. And then the third piece is I'll call it communication, but it's a little bit more than communication. It's about communicating and socializing in a pro-social sort of way. So we don't tease each other, we don't pick on each other, we don't talk about each other behind each other's back.
Mhm.
That way, we can foster a more cohesive unit, similar to the village concept that Ms. Campbell is talking about. But we know everybody are going to have differences of opinion, and that's okay. But just even with those differences of opinions, you're still able to have a conversation and not get mad at each other or yell at each other and let it um, become something else that it wasn't meant to be. So those are the three things for us.
So we heard this concept of village, with what it used to be in the times past, versus if it even exists now. I mean, we could spend some time dialoguing on that and perhaps even go further in on it. But we know what a village used to look like, the neighborhood, the community, um, the family in itself was in and of itself its own village. That was that system in and of itself, the family system was sometimes a self-supporting, self-sustaining village. Mama, grandmama, auntie, uncle, um, but that system, that form of village or that type of village has changed tremendously slow because grandmothers seem to be getting younger, as mothers have began to get a little younger in some instances. We talked a little bit about, mentioned a little bit about how parents find themselves having to have one and two jobs just to survive and make ends meet. Income versus expenses, or just the amount it costs. The cost of living has increased, and then we still are even learning in the midst of this pandemic what effect the shutdown and everything like that has had and will have, and the long-term effects that it will have upon our economy, and even for some of the funding of some of the programs that are out there. And so it's a whole lot that's unfolding, but so that dynamic has had its effect, and those dynamics have had its effect on just the family in itself, the neighborhood, knowing the pastor, um, people making church or religion, whatever form of religion it is, whether it be Christianity, Muslim, Buddhism, Hinduism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, the various types of religions that existed out there. It was a time back then where there were more church people, if you will, or religious
Mhm.
people or spiritual people, if you will, in times past, which brought on also a sense of different types of morals, that we all used to have, how we would speak to one another. Someone told me we had an incident with someone. Don't laugh at us, but it's somewhat comical. You ought to keep laugh. You have to keep laughing in order to keep them crying. Someone stole an entire 32 passenger bus off of our church property. One of the officers said, "Pastor, there was a time where there was a code of ethic." One of the majors said there was a code of ethics. You didn't rob from old people. You didn't rob. You didn't bother the women and babies and the church. You would leave alone. Those kind of institutions, they were left off. But the dynamics of what we know as village, I believe, has had an effect
Mhm.
even into that code of ethics, if you will. And so, um, and so, so let's talk. Let's a little bit about the present village, and then in the present village, what ways, because just the village and applying it to Miami-Dade County, we know that Miami-Dade County, it is a large geographical area. And so you can't look for the entirety of the county to be one
Mhm.
humongous village, but then you got to have pockets of villages to not take and eat the elephant with one bite, but try and nibble at it with bite. And so, Ms. Thompson, we'll start with you. Let's talk about that village concept, present village. How can we somehow, I guess, replicate or create, if you will, a modern day village in our current climate and context? And I know technology plays a role, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many dynamics, and we don't have a whole lot of time that we want to talk on, but just touch on it a little bit because we need a village. We need a village. We need a village to take and help to raise our children and keep our children safe.
Two words come to mind when I hear that question. First one is care, showing people that you genuinely care about them. And the second one is judgment free, or a lack of passing judgment on folks, because everyone has their issues, everyone is going through something, right? But you want to associate yourself with things that are non-judgmental. You don't want to be associating with things that make you feel less than, right? So
Mhm.
if we're able to get get to a place where we don't pass judgment on folks for whatever their circumstances are, then we can start having the conversation about being together. Because once you start ostracizing people, they're just going to put up their walls and you're going to lose them.
Okay. Okay. So, Ms. Campbell, you talked about village, and you talked about knowing the pastor. You didn't mention back how back in the day they used to get a pastor lunch and dinner and made all the kids
Listen,
wait.
Pastor, let me tell you what I was going to tell you. When I grew up, my pastor used to be at our house every Sunday with his feet under my mama table. He used to go visit everybody and eat everywhere. But I'm going to tell you my story. So when I came, I grew up in Georgia and I moved to Miami when I was very young. And I got married and I had children here. Now, when I got divorced and my ex-husband moved to Dallas, Texas, I had to create my village. So my daughter was young and she was a teenager. And at that time, I didn't know nothing. I was stupid and I didn't know nothing because I was her mother. So I had to find the women in my circle that she could relate to.
Okay.
And I had one friend who was 10 years younger than me. And she became the person that my daughter confided in, who would tell me a lot of the things that my daughter wouldn't tell me as her mom. So that was one of the things that I did. I went to the boys and the girls. My sons went to the Boys and Girls Club. And there were men there, Black men there, who I trusted to be father figures to my boys. So when they got out of order, I would call these men and say, hey, my son is doing this. I don't know what to do. And they would go to the schools and they would look after them and they would ruffle their feathers And so I had to create my village, because that village that I had when I was a girl growing up, I didn't have that when I was raising children here. And my neighbors didn't speak English. My neighbors had different morals and values than what I had. So I knew that I couldn't trust my kids to those folks. So I had to find the people who were similar to me and who had similar values and how they raised their children. And so those were the people that became my village. And a lot of those people I know to this day, and my kids call them aunties and this, because that's what they became to them. Now, that is the village that we have to create if we're not in a community of people who have the same morals and the same values as we do. We have to create our own village. Is it people that live next door or down the street? No. Sometimes you got to get in the car and you got to drive, but you can start within your own community, because there are people in your community who can become a part of your village. But we have to start talking more to each other, and seeing each other, at places like the stores and the laundromats, and and places in the community where you can get to know each other. But Pastor, we have to create our own village in the midst of all of this craziness that's going on in our communities. And we have to find those people that fit within our village. And I'm telling you, they're out there. But and just want to talk a little bit about the parents that work two jobs to make ends meet. Um, we have to find a way to reach out to them. Like, you are working every day, Miss. Can I pick your kid up? Can I take your daughter to this place where my daughter go? I know she'll like it. So reach out to people, talk to people, and you will be surprised. You will be surprised what people are going through, and they need help. So people need help, but we got to talk to each other. We have to reach out to people, and we have to stop, like Mr. Thompson said, being judgmental, because people don't know a lot of things. We think just because we know, everybody know, and that's not true. But we have to reach out to people. We have to reach further than what we've been willing to reach, and sometimes we have to reach a little further than that if we
So,
want to create this village.
so no judgment.
No judgment.
Village. We got to talk some more to people, and then perhaps your village that you create is not necessarily the person next door to you or across the street from you, but identifying like-minded people that share some of the same ethics and morals that you have, perhaps, and same practices that you have, and and then creating. So it's like this, this synthetic village that you would have doesn't have to be geographically right within your neighborhood. Those things do
Yes.
help out if you want to go across the street and you have someone to watch or keep or help out with your child, or or what have you. But you have to then sometimes you have to branch out further than that, because it may not
Mhm.
be as Ms. Campbell said. I have neighbors who don't speak English as well, and so you have to sometimes reach out, and then sometimes I have to use my technology to help me with the Spanish that I don't know in order to communicate to my neighbor. And so, but even that, the me waving my hand at him.
Hey, you just took the
Yeah,
words out of my mouth. How about, hey, how you doing?
yeah.
How
Hola,
about that?
¿cómo está? Just
Everybody
just
know
that
that.
alone, right? Just that alone, talking to people, and there's no judgment, as Mr. Thompson was talking about, no judgment between he and I. And now his daughter, she knows English quite well. And her
Mhm.
ball one day came over in my yard, and they came and knocked on the door, and they asked me, say, hey, our ball came into the yard. I say, give me a second. They wanted to know if I had dogs in the yard. I said, no, I don't. I said, no, you all have all the dogs. So I opened up the fence, let them go back there and get the ball and come back out. But even that alone, that helps bridge a gap
Yeah.
and makes things comfortable,
Hmm.
even for her father, who has poor English and my poor Spanish. But now there's a bridge. He saw that, listen, his daughter felt comfortable enough to come over and
Yeah.
didn't get this mean upset guy, you know, this angry black man that don't want these Spanish kids in his yard and don't want their ball in the yard and da 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 da. No, you can't get it. The ball
Wow.
is in the garbage. But there was a bridge created, and so you can even create communities, not create rather villages like that with just a
Yes.
simple act of kindness, just a simple gesture to speak, no judgment, and going beyond our various geographical areas. And so, how does a village then, because I don't want someone to think that we have a kite that is untethered, how does having a village, because we went there talking about a village, how does a village help our young people? How does a village help the parent, who is, and I think Miss Campbell, you saw us saying a little bit about it. Hey, listen, another mother can tell that mother with two jobs, hey, listen, my daughter or my son is in this program. Can I introduce you to it? Communicating with them. But how does a village? Give me some other ways of how a village helps our young people. Ms. Thompson, can you help us out in that area?
Absolutely. So, first up,
Mm,
humans always want to be in a place where they feel like they belong, right?
Mm,
And the concept of a village is that. So if it is that we create this village, and like you said, your neighbor was comfortable enough to allow his daughter to come over to your place, sense of belonging. They felt that genuine connection, right?
mhm.
And they felt like they belonged. They didn't have to tippy toe or do any of that crazy stuff to get to where they needed to go. And over time, that builds on itself, right? Builds on itself. So then people can start trusting each other again. And once we start trusting each other again, we start becoming friends. And once we start becoming friends, we start caring for each other, caring about the well-being of each other. And as that morphs, the kids are going to be seeing this, seeing the adults display in these types of emotions and behaviors and say, you know what? That's the way it ought to be. For the same way he would see his father beating up on his mom and thinking, well, maybe that's how I need to be when I grow up. It's the same way they're gonna see all this care, this care for self and care for others play out in front of them and adopt those behaviors and carry it with them wherever they go.
I like that. I like that. Someone put in the chat on the webinar. They put in trust, um, creating a positive village, and absolutely saying that these are panels. These panels like these are very needed for our communities. Miss Campbell, can you share, how does a village impact and can help our children, help out some of our families, so that we don't have, the idle minds, or don't have kids that are not engaged, in order to curtail that small group, because like you stated, it's not all of the children, and we must help to get the right narrative out there. It's not all of the children. It's not all of the children. And even the police will tell you that it's always a small group that is driving the violence in our streets, a small group.
yep.
But in order for Channel 7, Channel 10, Channel 4, Sun Sentinel, Miami News. Who else is there? Do I have Miami Herald? Who are all these publications and media
Don't
outlets?
forget the times.
Miami Times and all of them, everyone,
Yeah.
all of those that I missed out on, in order to get
Yeah.
people to buy or to tune in, is the over sensationalization of news. And most of the time, it's we got to show you all of the negative news. They're not showing you a car accident to help you to divert. They're showing you the accident because you're going to be, oh, look at this accident. So they're going to show you all of the negativity and try to paint it like all of our
Yeah.
kids. But even with that small group and even the larger group that is doing positive, we want to keep them doing positive. How does the village impact in a positive way those kids that are doing the negative things, and even encourage those kids and families that are doing the positive? Can you touch on that?
The only thing I can do is tell you a story. I
Okay.
love to tell stories.
Okay.
So I moved into a new neighborhood in this past December. Moved to a new neighborhood, didn't know anybody, Did nobody come over with a pie to welcome me to the neighborhood? Did nobody knock on my door and say, "Hey, who are you? How are you?" So, so my neighbor next door had mangoes. I'm a mango crazy person. I love mangoes. So I was like, wow. I asked the wife for some mangoes. She don't speak English. So the husband was a little friendlier. So the husband gave me some mangoes. So I make mango preserve. So I made the after I made this big batch of the mango preserve. I went and I gave the husband. I gave him two. I said, "This one is for you, and this one is for your wife." Okay. Now I get hello. How are you? Because it is just about the reach, the conversation, and finding a way to spread some love and to show some love and be an example of what it is we're trying to promote here. If we are trying to promote the village, you gotta be the village first. You have to be it first. You have to be the example of what it is you're trying to promote. So we want to promote love. Then you got to be the love. You got to make the sacrifice of being the love. And so that's what I would say. That's the key to this whole thing is being the example of what the village should be.
Hmm.
So what happened after that? So I went to a book bag giveaway. There were some extra book bags. I took a book bag for they have a son and a daughter. Now the kids are saying hello. Before the kids wouldn't speak to me. They would get out of their car and I would be standing in my driveway waving and they would hurry up and go in the house and close the door.
Wow. Wow.
Now I'm getting a hello because here I am, this Black woman, whatever their perception is of a Black woman, I was that. So I had to accept that these people don't know me. They probably think I'm something, and that's not what I am. So I had to be whatever that thing was that I wanted them to be. And I wanted them to be friendly. I wanted them to say hello to me. I don't want to be in a neighborhood where my neighbors don't speak to me. That doesn't make me feel good. So I had to be the person that just kept pushing and pushing to break down that wall. And so now that's where I am, but I had to be that. So we have to be that thing that we want to see more of in our community.
Awesome. Awesome. Listen,
And
go ahead.
I
Yeah.
just want to jump in here
Yeah.
because that exact same story you described was me 3 months ago when I
Wow.
moved into a new community. The exact same thing. And I went over to my neighbor and was like, "Hey, I'm such and such. This is my wife, yada yada yada." And now, before I even pull up in the driveway, everybody's waving and
That's
they're
good.
expecting a child in a couple of months, and we're gonna be getting them a gift and
Yeah.
all the everything that goes with what you're just saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can definitely relate to that.
There's a there's a passage of scripture that says, if you want a friend, you must first show yourself to be friendly. So if you show yourself to be friendly, you will gain a friend. You show yourself to be brotherly, you will gain a brother. You show yourself to be sisterly, you'll gain a sister. You show yourself to be a neighbor, you'll gain a neighbor. And so that's one of the golden rules, that we find in Christianity, that a lot of our communities and just humanity in general has lost out on, which is important to be that type of an example to the young people who are so impressionable, whose eyes are open. They're like sponges, absorbing everything that they see, everything that they hear. And so we as adults, I believe Ms. Campbell, you stated a little bit earlier, it starts with adults. We as adults have to be the ones to take and set that example
Mhm.
and to hold up this image and say, this is what you are to look like. You are created, um, you know, just as we as human beings, those of us Christianity, we believe that we have been created in the image and likeness of God. You have been created. You're just a smaller, younger version of me. And so then we have to show them and hold up a picture of what we want them to look like. We're going to begin to wrap it up because I always promise the viewers listen on Thursday night. I only want to keep you no longer than an hour because we always want them to come back. There's so much more that
Yeah.
we could touch on and we could talk about. We just kind of just begin to just scratch the surface. I remember one time I was in a store and I wanted to buy this fragrance for my home, and they had on the front of the bottle, they said, scratch here and you can smell what it smells like. And so all we did was we just scratched the surface so that you can catch the aroma and get excited about having your kids plugged into an organization, whether it be an after school, a preschool, a tutoring, a summer program, winter is coming up, mentoring programs. There are a vast variety of programs that are out there. And we don't want to see whether it be the positive young people or those that are not engaged in the positive activities, we don't want to see any of our children left behind. We don't want to see any of our children having to be at home 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours while you're at work or some other activity that you as a parent have to be at. It doesn't make you a bad parent, doesn't make it a bad family. There is help. If you don't have a village, there are new villages that are out there now by way of Girl Power, by way of the FIU All Stars. There are new villages that are out there. The King of Clubs of Greater Miami Incorporated, HBCU Alumni Associations, 100 Black Men of South Florida. I might be pronouncing this one wrong. That's Egalic, I believe, or Egalic. Civic and Social Club Inc., Black Male College Explorers. They got the
Hmm.
Big Brothers and the Big Sisters of Miami, Community Youth Against Violence, Embrace Girl Foundation, Girl Power, in which we mention and have the executive director here on with us. FCAA, they are still out
Yes.
there. Honey Shine Mentoring Program, Mahogany Youth Corporation. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on and on that I might miss out on somebody. We do have a list that was shared with us that if you wanted to reach out to our church, we can share that with you because we just want for you to have your village, and one of these organizations may be a part of your village. It may be Girl Power. It may be FIU All Stars that become a part of your village. And so, with that being stated, let me allow for our guests to just give some closing remarks, and then we'll wrap up our time here on tonight. Remember, this will be up on our YouTube, up on our Facebook, as well as up on our Twitter page. You can always pull it, share it with a friend, share it with a family member, and let them listen in on this because someone may be challenged because they know they could be a part of the village, but they've been absent, but now they're going to step out. Miss Campbell, would you give us some closing words and some closing thoughts, and then we'll have some closing words and thoughts from Mr. Thompson.
Okay, first of all, Pastor Barbara, I want to say thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this conversation. I'll have to call my friend Misty tomorrow because she is the one that told me about this panel. And so I'll have to call her tomorrow and thank her because I really enjoyed the conversation. And I'm always up for this type of dialogue where we're talking about our people because our people are great and our kids are great. Most of our kids, the majority of our kids are great. And I want to encourage people to love kids more, to listen to kids more, and to love them more when they are at their worst. When kids are at their worst is when they need us the most. So just always remember that, that and you don't know who you're speaking to when you're talking to a kid. You don't know what this kid is going to be. You don't know where he's going. So we just have to give the love to all of them. So love children, love them more, and love them even more when they are at their worst. And I thank you.
Amen. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Mr. Thompson, can you give us some closing words here on tonight?
Absolutely, sir. First and foremost, thank you for allowing me to share my perspective on the evening's proceedings. Thank you, Ms. Campbell, for also being a part of this conversation.
Thank
You
you.
provided some insight and a particular look or view to the conversation that I couldn't bring to the table. So I want to thank you for that and salute you for that. and continue to do, and also hope that you continue to do the work that you're doing, because some of the schools that you are in, we are also in as well.
I know.
So
My staff know your staff, okay?
right. So yeah, same team pulling in the same
Yes.
direction, right? So so yeah, but I thoroughly enjoyed this experience, because for a number of reasons, but the one that sticks out the most is that my history is a lot different from most of the students that we work with. I'm originally from Jamaica, and I didn't grow up in Miami. I came to Miami for university and then stayed. So my story is a lot different. But there are some elements and some things that I can bring to the conversation and to their experience that they might not get elsewhere. So, and I take pride in that. And this conversation allowed me to get that message to a wider audience that who I may not have come in contact with. So I thank you very much, Pastor Barbara, for allowing me the space to do that. And I hope that whoever is watching and listening, do take heed to what we're saying. We're here to help you. We're here to support you. And we're all rooting for you, and we're all on the same team. And we just want to make sure that the kids that are coming up will be in a place where they feel secure, loved, and valued in some ways that my generation may not have felt that way. So thank you for allowing me the space, and I hope the conversation continues, because one and done is not going to get the job done. So we need to continue having these conversations and think of ways to reach our parents and reach our kids so that they can be the best versions of themselves.
Absolutely. So listen, how do they get in contact with the FIU All Stars?
So we have a web page. I'll put it in the chat box, and I'll also verbalize it. It's www.sfasas.org. And on there, you can find all the information surrounding the program, all the schools that we're operating, how to get directly in contact with us, the steps to get your child enrolled in our program, and pretty much any bit of information you need. And if it's not there on the website, there's a pathway that can direct you to that specific piece of information that you need. So I encourage anyone to check out our website, www.sfasas.org, for any and all information that you may need.
All right, all right. Sounds good. Sounds good. Now, how do we get in touch? How do people get in touch with Girl Power? Girls, they rock.
Okay. So Girl Power, our social media handles is Girl Power Miami. Social media, Girl Power Miami. If you want to go onto our website, is girlpowerrocks.org. That's Girl Power Rocks with an S.org. You can find out about all of our programs and services. And if you're feeling generous, we also have a donate button if you want to make a contribution. So thank you, Pastor.
Yes, want to make sure that people have ways that they can reach out to the both of you, and then as well as we shared with all of those viewing tonight, that you can go to come to our church or call our church, rather call our church 305 and you could get more information for not only Girl Power Rocks, but also for the FIU All Stars. And then, as well as for, we have a list of resources for other organizations out there that just want to make sure that your young people are not idle. And then maybe you need to get involved and be a participant, a volunteer. They may need some help. You may find yourself being a part of a larger village or creating your own village. And so, listen, we thank you all for joining us here tonight for our third Thursday Talks. We thank our panelists again for coming in and sharing their voices and adding some color and contours and context to the conversation here on tonight. To all of our viewers, viewing us on Facebook, thank you. To all of you viewing us on YouTube, we thank you too. And to those of you on Twitter, thank you. And to all of our participants who joined the webinar via Zoom, we thank you. We thank you as well. And I just want to say to you all, viewing, good night. And until next time, I love you in Jesus. Stay safe. Peace.